Hello, Regis students. How are you? So we're in inheritance, lesson 11, and we're in section 11.2. This section introduces two new concepts called polymorphism and composition. These are not complicated. All they are some different variants that you need. These are the baseline variants that you need to be aware of when working with object-oriented programming. Primarily so you can dissect it if you're looking at code and or if you're trying to work on a design and perhaps using AI to help design. You need to know these key terms. Now, what polymorphism does is I fixed the scrolling. What polymorphism does is that you can combine animals together. And so what that means is that you can call the same method for doing different things with different animal types. And so it morphs depending upon the specific instance, whether a dog or a cat, what it's going to do. Now, what composition is the essence of what you can think of composition is you're going to add something that you don't necessarily need in the superclass. So, and the example that we give you is that it is going to be adding a collar where you're going to take the dog for a walk, okay? And so one of the go-tos is has a or uses a relationship. A dog has a collar, a game has a scoreboard. So that's one way that you can reason whether you should have a composition object. And but the whole goal is to keep your hierarchy shallow. And what that means is that your object hierarchies, instead of blowing them out and adding layer upon layer, because eventually that will help trip you up. So it's to keep them on the shallow side. So let's just jump right in and take a look at it. So we create our superclass and subclass here. All right, we're going to have our animal. The animal's going to be able to speak and make a sound. And then we go to a subclass where we have a dog and a cat, wolf and meow. Okay, so what is composition? Well, composition is the decision that was made that instead of putting a collar up in the superclass or putting a collar and layering it by the cat or the dog, what we will do is keep it just for itself. And so it's not really a superclass. It's kind of like its own subclass. And, this is where names don't always, it might have a more technical name, but you just need to know that, it's a helper object. That's what it, it's a way that you're going to be able to do some help. So in the example, we're going to combine inheritance with composition. And so we're going to now create a class pet dog, okay? And then in the class pet dog to go for a walk, okay, it is going to be having a collar, and we're going to be tightening a collar. But what we're going to do is we're going to mingle it between the collar class and the pet dog class. So let's see if you'll be able to see this. All right. It might seem a little strange at the moment. So what I did in the example is I have a nice example that you can read through. But polymorphism, we're going to have the same method, we're going to have a different behavior. So we're going to create an instance of our animals. We're going to have a dog, that's going to be Rex. We're going to have a cat, Whiskers, and we're putting them in a list data structure. Okay? So this is where the polymorphism is, that we're combining cats and dogs now into an animal portfolio, but then we can loop the animal portfolio and have them speak. And it's the easiest to understand when you see them being embedded inside an object, a data structure. So then you're realizing like, I can have all the animals of one type of species and I can put them all in one list. And so I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm doing a good job explaining that. Once you kind of stare at it for a little bit, it becomes more crystal clear. But now composition in action, okay, we're going to have the collar, okay, so we're going to create a helper object, an instance where C is going to equal just that helper object that was standalone up top. And then our pet, we're going to go use the pet dog object. Okay, so we're going to push the collar into the pet dog instead of blowing out the pet dog. And then we're going to run a pet walk. Okay, our object, we're going to run our method, go for a walk. So the buddy is going to end up, he's going to go for a walk, but then it also fired with the C, it fired the collar object, which tells us that buddy's red collar, because it had ability to take a color, was then tightened. So polymorphism, same method, different behavior. So we pack our animals into a list and traverse, and then fire the subclass to get the voice attribute. Composition example. We have the collar object versus making the animal class is more complicated. So why? Well, you might think the example overall is kind of goofy, but really in the superclass being just animal, maybe you don't want to program a condition like having a collar, because generally you don't put a collar on a whale. So I hope this helps in the explanation. And will be one more for the lab, but what I want you to realize is exactly what you see here. There's going to be one more. There'll be this exact example is then what used for you to replicate in the lab. Okay, so I give you a few more little walkthroughs on a specific composition to break it down. All right, but then when we go into the lab, you are replicating this exact item here. So that's why I made the video, this audio video. It's about 7 minutes. So thank you so much.